Well, I'd expressed an interest in being able to do a film, and there was a chap who worked at Atlantic Records at the time, a guy called Phil Carson, who was sort of liked what I did, and he suggested to Michael Winner. I think Michael Winner had just done a film with John Paul Jones as the composer, and I think in many ways Michael Winner was looking around people who wouldn't charge kind of too much money, because we're all first timers at films, and therefore we weren't experienced people. Also, he liked the idea, I think, of using just people who hadn't done it before, really, and found that quite an interesting idea. Anyhow, so having been approached, I had this theme that I decided I wasn't going to use on The Fugitive, which was the album I was doing at the time, because I wanted to use slightly more quirky pieces on that. And I thought it would make a good film theme, so I put it down, did a demo of it, and sent it to Michael, and he seemed to like it very much. Well, he's quite a character, as everyone sort of knows, actually. I mean, he was very friendly towards me, and he seemed to be very enthusiastic about whatever I gave him, actually. He used to, because when I was doing the film, I was kind of pushed for time all the time, because I was doing The Fugitive at the same time, and there were one or two cues that the arranger, Christopher Palmer, sort of did off his own bat a bit, because I hadn't come up with anything at the time. And, Michael could pick these out instantly and say, I don't like that, you can't use that and stuff. So that, he was always very good to, I think he had a sort of bit of a sort of hierarchical thing. People, if you're above the sort of a certain line, he was very, very friendly towards you, very good towards you. If you're below a certain line, he didn't tend to treat you that well. But that was part of his thing, really. And I stayed in touch after that, really. We went to a few parties and all the rest of it and stuff, and he was always very kind to me. Michael originally wanted to use another arranger, and then he decided that he wasn't experienced enough. I think he wanted, because I was a first timer, he wanted to make certain he had someone who was very solid there, and Christopher had a good reputation and everything, and so I could rely on him a lot. And really I just did most of the cues I just did playing on the piano, and sent him a demo of the piano stuff, which was all based around the kind of themes that I'd written. Never really got a chance to use most of the themes in full, but just little bits and pieces here and there. And then he orchestrated them, and that's what he did. I mean, I think sometimes his orchestration was a little bit kind of flowery and for me, but I thought that he nevertheless made the main theme sound fantastic, I thought, really. Much better than I ever thought it was. And I wrote the thing, I thought it was a nice little theme, but then he knew the music, and particularly the version that's used, which opens the album, the new version of the album, which was used in a sort of soft porn sequence in the middle of the film, which unfortunately was kind of edited very highly when it was shown. But it was a chance to actually play the theme and go through it a lot of times and do a few key changes and things. And I thought he did a lovely version of that, really. And that's the strongest piece on it for me. The rest of it is, is incidental music kind of put into order as we wrote it, but then combined to make more sense of it, without really ever doing any of the themes in full, which I slightly regret. And that's why on the sort of the second side of the record I put my versions of the themes as I'd done them as demos, really, because they make more sense in structural terms, even though they perhaps don't sound quite as nice, but they have a certain character. I went with some trepidation initially. I'd done one film before, which was The Shout, which Mike and I had done a little bit of incidental music for, but that had been very, very slight. We'd sort of done pieces and then they'd kind of fitted them in, really, rather than a couple of moments we'd written with the film in mind, but most of it not. But I thought the music worked well with it. With this, it was obviously going to be much more done in cues and everything, and I'd never really done that before. But I sort of quite got into it, really, in the end. Initially I was a bit frightened, but then you start doing it, and sort of ideas come, and it's a bit like being the pianist in the old-fashioned films in the theatre, and you just play along and see what happens. And some things sort of came that I sort of quite liked, and some bits which were not in the original writing, if you like, of the themes, and you come up with a new idea, and thought, well, I'll use that because that sounds good. I mean, it was quite a dense film in terms of music. You know, it was quite a challenge, and I thought that was very good that I had the arranger to help me. But it was fun to do. It was the first time I'd ever worked with an orchestra, and I thought the sound was nice. I mean, always loved orchestral music, but I always felt it was a bit beyond me. You know, it was altogether it was a good experience. But it was, I wouldn't say it was fairly fraught at times. You know, as I said, at the same time I was trying to do The Fugitive, where I was doing singing for the first time and everything, and that was all quite fraught. So it was a pretty tense period, but it was quite productive. It's just one of those things a lot of people ask me over the years, that, you know, to make it available, because all there is the old vinyl version, and you know, obviously the film wasn't very successful, so the album didn't do very much, so there aren't many copies of it about, really. I think I've got most of them here somewhere. So it was nice to put it out there, and at the same time you sort of clean it up and rearrange it and sort of do other things to it. So I'm pleased it's out there. I'm proud of the music. I quite, you know, the second side, which is the sort of bits and pieces, the original demos and everything, is sort of, you know, it fits in quite well with the sort of music I did on things like soundtracks and some of the instrumental pieces I did over the years, like The Waters of Lethe and all that. So it kind of, I'm pleased to have them out there, because I think there's a couple of pieces in there that are actually quite good. You know, would be quite fun to try and do something more with, maybe.